Good morning to all. So let's see 9th standard social science history, the first lesson, evolution of humans and society in the prehistoric period. So the lesson name is evolution of humans and society in the prehistoric period. So prehistoric period means ancient period, and it is also called as old stone age. So we live in the age of information technology. The mobile phones have literally put the world on our fingertips. The all encompassing knowledge that we possess now, which has helped in the development of powerful technology, did not emerge all of a sudden. The foundation of our modern life was facilitated by the development of the process of conjugation among the human ancestors in the prehistoric age. That means the world which we are living is fully developed. So this development didn't happen all of a sudden. It took millions of years. So in our starting period, the prehistoric people, they led a nomadic life. Nomadic means they keep on moving from one place to another in search of food and shelter. So later they got developed and they settled down near the river valley regions, and they started to live as a family, and they learned agriculture and domestication of animals. So this development which we are living in this modern life is we got from the prehistoric people. So the prehistoric people were the pioneers of creative knowledge. From the artifacts and the languages they developed, we are able to understand how intelligent they are. So the prehistoric people only are the pioneers. So pioneers means they are the first to create or to invent the tools, or they are the first to invent the wheel, they are the first to invent the usage of fire. So they have a creative knowledge. So next we can see about the origin of the earth and the geological ages. The history of humans is closely related to the history of the earth. The earth contains geological, archaeological, and biological records of historical times in its upper layer. They are important for reconstructing the history of the earth and various living organisms, and the fossil bones of the human ancestors are embedded in the earth layer. So the history of the humans as well as the creation of the universe is very closely related. So the universe is created because of the Big Bang explosion, and from there begins the history of the humans. So the sources or the evidences we can see, like a geological source as well as archaeological source or biological source, everything is on the upper layer of the earth's surface. Upper layer means the upper layer of the earth is called crust. And even the fossil bones of the humans, so fossil bones means the dead and decayed things, so have been embedded in the earth layers. The paleoanthropologist and archaeologist excavate the soil and rock layers on the earth and extract the evidence about human ancestors. These layers and the fossils are scientifically dated to study the various stages in human evolution and prehistory. Through the gathered evidence, they attempted to understand the evolution of human history and developments in a chronological order. So, paleoanthropologist and archaeologist. So, their duty is to excavate. Excavate means dig up the soil to take out the evidences like fossil bones or the remains or the objects which they used, which has been buried in the ground for many years. So they will take out and they will use the dating technology. Dating means carbon dating technology to determine their age, to determine the period in which it was used. In chronological order, chronological means sequential order. So the word archaeology means it is the study of the human past through the analysis and interpretation of material remains. So archaeology means study about the human past through the objects or the materials which they left behind. And the person who study the archaeology are called archaeologist. And next one is paleoanthropology. So paleoanthropology means it is the study of the human ancestors and their evolution by the study of fossil remains. So fossil remains means the dead and decay bones as well as all the dead and decay plants or animals. So paleoanthropology means study about the human ancestors, whereas archaeology means study about the human remains, that is the things which they used. But paleoanthropology means study about the human beings, their evolution. Evolution means from the initial stage to the advanced stage. So in the initial stage, humans were like apes. Apes means one kind of a monkey. So later their brain developed, their physical structure developed, and modern human, that is Homo sapiens, have been developed. So the earth was formed approximately 4.54 billion years ago. Gradually, conditions emerged for the growth of organisms, then plants and animals came into being, and thereby foundation was laid for the evolution of humans. The long span of time in the history of earth is divided into eras, periods and epochs by the geologist. So, the earth was formed, as I said, the universe came into existence because of Big Bang explosion, which took place about 4.54 billion of years ago. So we will classify the time period in the history as era or epoch, or as well as we can tell it as period. So 1 billion is equal to 100 crore years. So 1 billion of years is equal to 100 crore years. 1 million of years is equal to 10 lakh years. So 1 billion is equal to 100 crore and 1 million is equal to 10 lakh. Australopithecines were the apes from which modern human evolved. Now they are extinct, but they are considered to be the close relatives of humans. So Australopithecines is a kind of a ape or a kind of a monkey. So they are considered as the closest to the human being species, modern human being. But now they are extinct. Extinct means they are not found now. So human enquiries into the past and origin of the world. So humans are the only species on the earth concerned with understanding as well as explaining the world and the universe. So humans are the only species who can understand and also explain about the world as well as the universe when compared to the animals. So humans have developed brain. So in the course of evolution, humans became conscious and knowledgeable, and they turned curious and began to think and ask questions about nature, organisms and the world around them. So in the course of evolution, so evolution means from the starting stage, initial stage to the developed stage. So during this period of time, humans began to think more. Their thinking skills got developed and they began to ask questions about the nature. They began to think about the nature as well as the microorganisms or the living organisms and the world around them. At first, they considered nature as God. So, at the starting, the prehistoric people they worshipped the nature as God, and they worshipped sun, moon, and various natural forces about which they developed their own understanding, some of which is not scientific. So, they consider nature as their God. They worship the sun, the moon, and other natural forces, and they don't have the understanding. They don't have the scientific knowledge behind that. So, the lack of scientific knowledge on the creation of the world is reflected in the ancient writings and religious literature. So, the lack of scientific knowledge, they don't have the scientific knowledge. So, all these were reflected in their writings or the literatures, religious literatures during that period. So, in history, BC and BCE are same. BC and BCE are same. So, BC means before Christ, and the secular term for BC is BCE. So, that means before Common Era. AD and CE are same. AD means Anno Domini or after death, and CE is Common Era. Both are same. So, Common Era. This is the secular term. Secular term for BC, and this is the secular term for AD. And MYA means millions years ago. MYA means millions of years ago. So now let's see the scientific foundation of geology, biology and archaeology. So when the science evolved around among the prehistoric period. The beginning of history, writing can be traced to the ancient Greeks. Herodotus 484 to 425 BC or BCE. So BC and BCE are same. So BCE is a secular term for BC. Is considered as the father of history because the history he wrote was humanistics and rationalistic, and the rise of scientific inquiry into the origin of species was possible because of Charles Darwin. So the beginning of the history, beginning of the history was written. So the people who write the history are called historians. The people who write the history are called historians, and the first historian to write the history in a realistic and humanistic manner was the Greek historian Herodotus. So Herodotus is considered as the father of history. So, the interest in collection of archaeological remains and the opening of museums after the Renaissance movement. So, the Renaissance movement is also called revolutionary movement, and the interest in collection of archaeological remains. So, when the history was started, so when the people got the interest to collect the archaeological remains means the used things or the used object that was left behind by the past people. So they got the interest to collect that, and they got the interest to open the museum to display whatever they collected. The development of ideas of stratigraphy and geology, Darwin's theory of biological evolution. So they got the idea of stratigraphy as well as geology, as well as the Charles Darwin's theory of biological evolution. We can see all these in later. The discovery of human and animal fossils, stone tools, and the artifacts of early civilization. So they discovered many human and animal fossils. Fossil means dead and decayed things. The stone tools which they used, and the artifacts. Artifacts means the objects which they developed, and we can understand the early civilization. The ability to decipher the early script. So decipher means the early script will be written in some other language. So they must be able to decode it, and they must make it understandable. So stratigraphy. Stratigraphy means the study of origin, nature, and relationship of rocks and the soil layers that were formed due to natural and cultural activities. The stratigraphy means the study of the relationship between the rock and the soil. Study of the relationship between the rock and the soil layer, which is formed either by natural as well as the cultural activities. So cultural activities means any other human activities. So this is a museum. So museum is one of the important source of history where they display all the artifacts which they excavate during the archaeological process. So the oldest museum, that is the Museum of Enigaldi Nana in Mesopotamia, was established in 530 BC or BCE. So this is the oldest museum, the Museum of Enigaldi Nana, which it is in Mesopotamia. So Mesopotamia is one of the earliest civilization. The princess Enigaldi was the daughter of the Neo-Babylonian king Nabonidus. So this princess only built that oldest museum at Mesopotamia. And the next museum is Capitoline Museum in Italy, is perhaps the oldest surviving museum. Surviving means it is still in existence. 1471 AD. AD is also called CE. CE is a secular term for AD at present. So another museum. So why they are giving all these museums means it is one of the important source to understand the history. And the next museum is Ashmolean Museum at Oxford University, is the oldest university museum in the world. It was established in 1677 AD or CE. Ashmolean Museum, where it is means it is at Oxford University. It is one of the oldest university in the world. Next one is Herbert Spencer's 1820 to 1903 AD or CE biological evolution. So biological evolution means evolution that happened in animals or plants. And then the Charles Darwin natural selection and the survival of the fittest theory. So Charles Darwin natural selection and the survival of the fittest. contributed to the scientific understanding of human origin. So the Charles Darwin theory, it contributed to the scientific understanding. It gave the scientific knowledge about the human origin. So Charles Darwin published the books on the origin of species in 1859 and the descent of man in 1871. So these two books, it tells about the human origin, the scientific knowledge behind the human origin. So first let's see about the theory of natural selection. So natural selection is the process by which the organisms that are better adapted to their environment would survive and produce more offspring. So natural selection means the particular organism that is suitable for the particular environment. Then only it will produce. So for example, polar bear means it is suitable only in the cold region. Penguins means it is suitable only in the cold region. So the organisms that is suitable for the particular environment, so that organism will survive and it will produce more offspring. More offspring means it will produce more generations. Next one is survival of the fittest theory. So the strong will survive. So the theory behind this is the strong will survive in the environment. Survival of the fittest means survival of the form that will leave the most copies of itself in the successive generation. So the strong will survive. If they survive means their generation will also will survive. Next is fossil. Fossil means the dead decay things of plants and animals as well as human beings. So the prehistoric animal or plant that turns into stone over a period of time. So the fossils also will not happen all of a sudden. It will take millions of years ago. It is formed millions of years ago. For example, the coal which we are using now, all these coal was formed millions of years ago. So these are the fossil remains of the prehistoric people. So the prehistoric animal or plant that turns into stone over a period of time, that is millions of years, because of chemical and physical processes. So because of the chemical reaction as well as the physical process, these fossils will turn into a stone. So animal bones are preserved due to mineralization, and paleontology is the study of fossil. So paleontology. So paleontology means study of fossil. And the Stone Age means where the people use stones to make their things. They depended mostly on the stones. So Stone Age is the period when stone was mainly used for making the implements. Next is Bronze Age. So instead of stone, they used bronze metal. So the Bronze Age is the period when bronze metallurgy. So metallurgy means extraction of metals from the ore. So when we take the metal from the earth, at the starting it will be ore. Then only we will purify it and it will be made as a metal. So extraction of metal from the ore. So that process is called metallurgy. So that was developed during the Bronze Age. And next one is Iron Age. So instead of bronze and stone, they depended mostly on the iron. They made iron tools, iron weapons. So the period when iron was melted to produce the implements. So they used the iron smelting process. So since the 19th century, scholars have used advanced scientific techniques. They undertook systematic studies to contribute to the current state of knowledge on prehistoric human origin and the early civilization. Now the theory of human evolution is widely accepted. So since from 19th century, all the scholars, they are using advanced techniques to understand the lifestyle of the prehistoric people. So prehistoric people means the ancient people, our ancestors, and their civilization. So one of the most famous civilization in India is Indus Valley civilization. So we can continue this lesson in the next part. So in the next part we can see about the Paleolithic age as well as the Mesolithic and the Neolithic. Thank you.